I'm Jennifer Zamparelli, and this is Just Between Us, a podcast about life and sex and relationships and the moments that are often lived quietly but deserve to be talked about out loud. Today's episode is about love, but not in the neat, linear kind that we're often told to expect. It's about finding yourself later than planned, building a family that doesn't follow a traditional script, and choosing kindness, honesty and respect, even as relationships change shape. I'm joined by Jennifer Rock and Jill Deering, a couple whose story includes becoming a parent at 18, coming out in their late 20s and building a family that doesn't fit a traditional mould. It's about learning who you are while maintaining strong, healthy relationships with your ex-partners along the way. This isn't about doing things by the book, because the truth is there is no single book, is there? Families come in all shapes and sizes and built in different ways at different times. And it's a story about resilience and trusting that love can be full and meaningful, even when it takes an unexpected path. You're very welcome.
What an introduction.
So lovely.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Deserved. It's lovely to have you both, because you just set off Mike there that you've never done this together before.
An exclusive first time interview.
How does it feel?
I don't know.
Fine.
Fine, yeah, just normal. Grand. We love chatting.
It's lovely to talk about it because it's still not the norm for everybody.
No.
And so just to, I suppose, normalise it or to talk about it and say that we still face the exact same conundrums and realities and maybe a few others. But I think it's an important conversation, so we're delighted to be a part of it.
I'm going to start with Jill. Jen,
Go for it.
Oh, love this. That normally never happens.
can you tell us how you guys met and how it all began?
Be nice, Jill.
I will be nice. I'll be honest. So we met. We met actually through kind of work in 2019. We were both sitting on a panel for business and women in business. And that was, we've heard of each other through social media, but it was the first time we properly met in person. And, the usual, after the event is done, photographs happen and numbers were exchanged for photographs to be exchanged. And that was it. And then through social media, there was more interaction. I was more aware of her brand and started, I don't know, skincare routine whatsoever. Whatsoever.
Face are not a thing anymore, Jill.
So she was kind enough to send things, and vice versa with Jill and Jill. We sent her product, and that kind of business, relationship had formed. And we went to each other's events and things like that. And then it wasn't until early 2020.
Okay, so a while later.
Oh yeah, it was a little bit later on.
Your mom bought my book for you for Christmas. And you had sent me a message saying, I got your book. And
That's right.
There was lots of back and forth and interaction. And a lot of my friends don't own their own business. So it was lovely to have you because you did. So there was just a mutual respect. But yeah, sorry.
Absolutely, yeah. And it wasn't actually until there was a little bit more moving to WhatsApp interaction when Jen was on a...
Took offline.
Yeah, boy, I had to go. She had to go to Italy because unfortunately Matt had an accident over there. He became very unwell, was in hospital, so she flew over. And I'm fortunate enough to know a good few people in different countries through friends of my past touring life that I said, if you need anyone in it that needs to translate English, from Italian, I can help you out. Anyway, that bit of personal, it was the first time it went from the kind of worky stuff to personal chat.
Jesus, this is a real slow burner relationship.
Slow burner,
you guys took forever.
And then she came back all well with Matt, thank God, and the personal chat kind of continued. And then we were going to meet up for a walk, all platonic. I'm just friends, let's hang out. Jen thought a little bit
I thought
different.
it was a date, Jennifer. I was totally ready for this to be a date. I had misread every single signal, but that's fine.
Did you really?
Yeah, genuinely. So I know you don't love this part of the story.
Do tell.
Oh, please tell.
It is our truth, Jill. So yeah, essentially Jill had sent me a message and you were going on holidays with her best friend, but she had written back saying, I'm going on holidays with my husband, but she left out the important word of work husband because they were touring the world together for 10 years and they were literally like yin and yang. They're still best friend. He was your best man at our wedding. So my heart sank. I was like, sorry, she's married. I totally misunderstood and thought she was, into women, and I wrote back kind of, trying to play all nonchalant, saying like, oh, congrats, I didn't know you were married. And she's like, oh no, sorry, my work husband. I was like, oh. She's like, I like girls. I was like, oh. So that was my little interest. I probably did have feelings for a lot longer. And then we went for the walk, and I'd never owned a tracksuit before in my entire life. I didn't know what flat shoes were. And so she's really cool, rocks a beanie still to this day. Sometimes I dress up in her clothes for the laugh at home because I look like a school child. So totally different in our style. But essentially I rocked up head to toe, all new clothes, thinking this was a date, and it wasn't a date.
Yeah, we went for a walk on Sunny Mount Beach, just totally chilled.
I'm totally fine with it. She hates when I say this though.
But it did cross my mind when we were on the walk. I was like, she's, acting a little bit nervous here.
Okay.
Like, anyway, we hung out for about an hour and a half and, parted ways. And that was the night that lockdown happened. And we phoned each other and ended up spending about 4 or 5 hours on the phone. And I was like, okay, there's something here. But I still, from previous relationship, I was just taking things, I wasn't looking at it like that, but I was just taking it real slow. But I really enjoyed talking to her. I was just like, I could listen to her chat.
What a compliment. I really enjoyed listening to her.
Still to this day, I still enjoy listening to her talk all the time. I just love how her brain works. So, I kind of fell for that for the first time ever. It was just an old way of courting through lockdown, writing letters, phone calls. It was just, we had to learn each other's character without alcohol or, going out on the town.
It was like old school courting in a modern sense because it was all online. We used to have date nights. And she'd cook her end and I'd cook the same food my end. And then my next door neighbour was in my bubble at the time, so he used to come in and actually pretend to cook the food because I cannot cook. So he'd whip up this beautiful chicken gourjon whatever, and he'd go away, and then she'd come on Zoom and be like, look what I made. So I lured her in with my inability to cook, and love blossomed. So I lied. No, yeah. So look, it was a lovely start. I do think it set us up well because we became. Like our communication, I think, stands to us. That's what it was built on, a bedrock of that. And then we had to fall in love with each other in a physical sense, to go on our first date and navigate who holds hands and how are you actually in a human being sense. So it was an unusual entry to it, but wouldn't have it anyway.
Well worth it.
Yeah.
Well worth it. Now, this podcast is mostly about fun indoors, but if you fancy a bit of al fresco, why not get out of the house and take a visit to Kildare Village with over 100 boutiques, 60 of which are exclusive in Ireland and 20 new brands to choose from. Visit Kildare Village, shopping that's so Irish. And Jen, we can't truly understand your relationship with Jill without talking about your son, Matthew.
Yeah. Cutie. So he just turned 22, so he's a fully flown adult man. But so I suppose through my journey, I was with his dad for a short period of time. His dad's still very much in his life. I was with another gentleman for my 20s. So I generally didn't know, and I mean this sincerely because people hear it and think, how did you not know that you would end up marrying a woman? And I just truly didn't. And even in the most professional way, I work with women all the time, but never had any inkling or consideration. And then when I did figure out my sexuality, it became a huge conversation at home, obviously. And so Matthew was actually about 11 at the time, and I remember saying to him, like, I think Mom, like, oh, I think your mom, like, I like girls. And and he's in 5th class and trying to navigate his own feelings.
Is he the first person you told?
He's the first person. Sorry, tell a lie. One of my friends would have known.
Okay.
And then, but in terms of I'm going to now approach home life, I said it to him first and foremost, not to look for permission for him and not for that to sound rude. I don't think you should look for permission for your kids, but I needed him to be somewhat okay with it before I could then fully fledge into it. And I think the lesson he'll still say to this date that he learned is he's probably proud, and he has said it, that he sees me be me, unapologetically so, providing there's no hurt or pain around it. So it took both of us quite a few years for us to settle into, his mom's going to be with a lady. We live in a small town, as many people do in Ireland, and it comes with conversations and raised eyebrows and is she having a midlife crisis and is everything okay there, and kind of question a lot. I was questioning a lot about myself, but then you're trying to be the best parent, so there was a lot going on at that time. But even last night before we were coming in here, we're like, Matthew, is there anything you'd like to say on your behalf? And he's like, not really, no. And I was like, okay, great, wise words. But what would you love to say to someone else? Say your friend came to you now and said, my mom is, going to marry a lady or whatever. And he was quite wise about it, wasn't he? He was like,
What's he saying?
You can say what he said because it was quite lovely.
Yeah, he basically was like, as long as you're being treated well, as in Jennifer, as in it's a slow process. Like, he's like, as long as you're giving the child time to come to terms with it rather than force it. Because as myself, I've had time to think about it before I came out. Jennifer has had experiences and a time to like grow into it. You can't just land it on someone and for them to be okay. They need to go through the process as well. So
It sounds like everybody needs to have a lot of patience.
yeah.
I wish they didn't. Like, I do dream of a world that maybe when Matt, please God, if he ever has kids and we become grandparents, and we've discussed who'll be Nana and who'll be Mamo and who'll be Granny, and I'll definitely not be Granny, just for the record. But no, we've had all those conversations about the future and, how I'd love if people didn't have to have that layer of sensitivity, that it was just okay from the get-go. But I think what happened is Matt was born into a life of, a mother and a father.
A very young mom.
Yeah, and that too, very much so. And then trying to navigate what does this mean and just how society viewed it. So there was a lot. But he said himself last night, he's like, I do think it's changed a lot. When Jill and I got engaged, he was still maybe struggling with telling some of his peers, because he was maybe 18, 19 around the time we started going out. And he's like, is it okay if I tell them? So like, I'd love in the future that he didn't have to question, is it okay? But now, oh my God, our house is like the house that everyone comes in and out of. It's like Grand Central Station. I'd have it no other way. You learn everything. But his friends are like salt of the earth, good guys. And when it's coming to the wedding, they're like, so do you both wear dresses? Or like, how do you walk down the aisle? Like, who does that? Like, they just ask genuine questions, and I love that it's normal and they don't raise an eyebrow. And
that is amazing.
Yeah,
that is great.
Come so far, so I'm proud of him. But it definitely has been a large part of him having to figure out that it's okay to be yourself, and he now just celebrates. He is unapologetically himself, as Jill is, as I am, and that's just what we believe is safe space at home to do and be. And I think that's a really important lesson for anyone, because otherwise I think you are denying yourself, and not just in sexuality, but in lots of ways. So.
But Jen has been an incredible guidance for Matt, like on her own with partners. Like, she has made an incredible, soft-hearted, very very emotionally in tuned human, especially for a man.
Yeah.
And he doesn't say an awful lot, thinks an awful lot, but then when he has time to think about it and says it, it's like it kind of hits you, and that's a testament to Jen and who she is.
Do you remember the first time meeting Matthew?
Yeah.
Go on.
I do. Actually, it's a funny story because it wasn't planned.
Did you get the phone call or in person?
Yeah, the phone call. So this is, again, it was during lockdown, and it was coming to we had met up a few times, but we hadn't introduced me to Matt.
But it's been established that
that I am.
You're into each other.
Yeah, he knew who Jill was. Everything with Matt is open, I believe, in depending on what.
So he knew
stage
you were
your child is
dating.
at.
He knew we were like on the phone every night and having the chats, and he knew my name. He knew where I lived. We hadn't met me in person yet. And anyway, I got a phone call. It was a FaceTime. Jen was coming up. I was like, oh, cool. Went to answer it, and it's Matt's face. And he's like, hi, Jill. And I hear Jen screaming in the background, and I'm like, what's going on? So
welcome to our family.
We have a cat, Belle, who likes to bring birds into the house.
Cat nature.
And she'd brought a bird in, and it went straight up to Matt's room, under Matt's bed, and Jen is screaming, trying to get this bird out, and she just threw her phone to Matt saying, calling me, call Jill, because apparently I can fix it, all the way over in Dundrum where I was living.
Yeah, good hour.
And that was the first time we met face to face.
So it was a really calm, cool, composed.
Okay.
Nice little introduction.
But no, you met in person. But I was the kindest times that as a parent, what it's like to watch your child do beautiful things and realize I'm raising like a beautiful human here. So he wrote a letter of his own accord asking Jill to move in. So I'd said to Matt, I wanted him to get through his leaving cert. Typically, often with many of our friends that are in same-sex female relationships, they work really fast, whereas I wanted to work kind of slowly and at the rate that best suited our family. I knew that Jill was for forever, so there was no race to get her in, although I would have loved you in sooner, but we had to respect everybody. So I said to Matt, like, I'm going to ask Jill officially to move in when you finish your leaving cert. So I had done this. I'm a little bit of a romantic, so I'd done like a treasure hunt around the house for her to find the keys. And then unbeknownst to me, while I was doing that, Matthew had written like a heartfelt letter about the difference he'd seen and how she had an impact in his life, our life as a unit, as a family, and had written that. And like, so my treasure hunt just went out the window, and she's sitting there sobbing, tears down her face, saying like, my God, this human at like, he was 18, 19, and just explaining, you know, seeing that love is love, and that's what became the theme for our whole family and our whole, not just us, but like love is love in all shapes or forms once it's respectful. So he's a cutie. So yeah, it can.
Really is.
And you know what? If I had listened to this podcast 10 years ago, it would have been such an inspiration for me, because I never thought I'd get to the stage where I'd have a wife, I'd be comfortable literally, ironically, in my own skin, and have a son that is so happy with it, so comfortable with it, and arguably is a more beautiful person because he's witnessed people go through their own ups, downs, tribulations, and you know, he's just in a really good place, but he has good people around him. It's always about the person. I do say it's about the person at the end of the day. Good people, regardless.
When you
of
look
the gender.
back in your 20s, when you were dating men and stuff, why do you think it didn't happen that you came out till your late 20s, was it? Why do you think that was? Or did you just get carried away with life?
Yeah, I suppose.
As Emma Doran jokes about.
Yeah, I know,
It's the
she-
last thing on the list. You go, oh yeah, Jesus, I'm
saw
gay.
that.
By the way, like, is it
And
literally?
sorry.
Is it literally that you just didn't sit down with yourself and ask those questions, or was there always something in the back of your head?
No, because I honestly think I could be a counsellor at this stage because I've done so much counselling, but as a recipient, and I mean, no, don't take any advice from me, definitely not a counsellor, but
Through your experience.
Through my experience, what I figured out now when I look back, there were actually signs, but I didn't know them at the time. So
Okay.
for example, I'll think back in a counselling session about, you know, a particular person, and if I so say a 15-year-old Jennifer might have been really intrigued about a friend and wanted to always go to that person's house and hang out. So there was no sexual feelings about it, but it was just sheer intrigue. And if you had replaced that person with a boy at the time, I would have told you that I fancied them, but it was just the confusion of not maybe knowing girls can fancy girls, which is now so totally different. In our family, we see it all the time, and lots of our, you know, all around us, we see that it's normalised, but at that stage it wasn't.
No.
And I know that sounds like God is at the historic ages and stages, but it's not terribly long ago, like you're
No.
talking 20 odd years ago. So to answer your question, I think I just generally didn't know, and it wasn't strong enough for me to look at it. And then when I had Matthew at 18, that became my whole life, and trajectory was to bring him up, rear him, and probably a large part of me wanted then to have normality as I invert. I'm going to totally do quotes for those, but normality as I saw it was to have man, woman, child, and live that unit and live the typical story that we've all dreamt of, and then realised a little bit into that there's something's not quite right here, but I didn't know what it was. So. And you've had Laura Dowling on your show, and I've done
Yeah.
the Viva La Vulva and stood at the National Concert Hall, and we do a Q&A at the end, and Laura's phenomenal. And one of the questions that always comes through, or even on her weekly confession boxes, it's women. And you said about Emma Doran's kind of skit, but it is true, and it's funny because I think that you only laugh when things are true, really, right? But when I listen to her, there's so many people that message me quite regularly, particularly when we started, you know, openly talking about our relationship online, or people seeing Jill sneak in. People were definitely confused because I had never spoken about having a partner, but I suppose people assume maybe that I was with a man, and then all of a sudden they're saying, I've told my dad I'm gay now because I've seen you have a normal life, and I realise that actually I can have all the things I thought, just the only difference is it's a different gender person than what I thought I was going to have or marry. And so that's quite amazing, because I think a lot of people get to this stage and then go, oh, actually I don't know who I am. I know who everyone else is. I know what I want to do with my life, but I don't know who I am. So I think the most beautiful part for me, aside from our home life, is that people are now looking and questioning and asking. And some of the harder questions I get asked at some of those talks are, I'm not happy in my relationship, so what do I do? And I can't just say run off and experiment. That's not fair. So absolutely explore those questions within yourself, and then take the next steps that you feel fit whilst you're consulting the key people around you, because your life will change. And by that I mean, because a lot of the questions I get asked are, I'm married with a man, but I'm not happy. What do I do? Is it okay? And I'm like, it's still cheating if you're with another woman. So you got to really respect what you're trying to do here. I'm not saying don't explore, but you can't. You have to see it as you're really affecting your family. So that responsibility piece is really important.
You said just a second ago, Jill kind of snuck it. No, she did, because let's talk about the wedding, okay? Just for a second. It was akin to some kind of royal wedding. It was phenomenal. I know you were talking about a lot, I know, because we work on dancing together as well. But can we talk about the wedding for a bit?
Like we did.
Are you okay?
I'm grand. We did, we did 2 of everything, 2 proposals, 2 weddings, because we got legally married, and we did a day with just the immediate, like just the intimate family, my parents, Jen's mom, Matt. It was probably our favourite day.
Very
It
chill.
was just our little core family. It was lovely. And then we did the big party, which was mahoosive.
It was mahoosive. You looked.
Day ever.
Yeah, but we're not going to do it again. that's that's the plan. It was a one-off big party.
And what is it like becoming a stepmom at 30?
I love it. To be honest, like not only was I, falling in love with Jen, but I was falling in love with Matt in my own way. In this kind of relationship is a different dynamic, and we had to slowly learn each other. Where myself and Jen could go, full steam ahead.
Yeah.
Or Matt, I had to really tread carefully and at his pace.
You have to, you earn his trust.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, a man of little words, but I think it's slow. It's little slow indications where he's really into his clothing and things like that, and I'd be the same, where he'd be coming to me going, I'm going to get a couple of these things now, what you think? And I'm like, all right, yeah.
His love language.
That's his love language, yeah. Or you make him a nice dinner, and it's like, it's just little things that, not purposely done, just kind of, that's how I am and that's how he is, and we just kind of navigate. Where now we like go to the driving range, we do little things that because I'm into sport,
Yeah.
do little things that he likes, going into his world rather than him joining two women and what we're into. Like, we brought him on we did a family moon. It was, it was an important thing to have. Yeah, we got married, but we're a trio now. So it's like, okay, well, let's do a big family holiday and celebrate us now actually being a rock-deering trio.
Can we talk about the men? The men.
The men. Which men?
So, Matthew has a very friendly relationship with his biological father.
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah.
And then you were with a man for a lot of your 20s. That kind of stood in as a stepdad for Matt. And they're quite close as well. He's still around. My God.
Oh, yeah.
Tell me about the 21st then. Like, where's everywhere we all at this?
Yeah. So I suppose I'm lucky that those relationships are really amicable. And yeah, Matt's dad, like they're so alike, aren't they? Yeah. Like, love sport together. They do a lot together. So even though Stephen and I were together at a very young stage in age, we've always just been co-parents. We didn't have the confusion of relationships because we were so young. We weren't really together very, very long. So that always makes it simpler. But yeah, to answer your question, at Matt's 21st, we came back from our honeymoon, not the family moon that Jill speaks of. And I was like, right, Matt, we're going to have a DJ. We're going to, all these big things. Like, I just want it in the house with people. I'm like, okay. So we are like chalk and cheese.
Still not exhausted after the wedding.
No, was ready for the next event.
Yeah.
But no, all joking aside, he just wanted it really simple, and he wrote out his list of who he wanted there, and we knew who'd be at it. So yeah, his dad was there, and then my ex, who he sees, as you say, like a really important role in Matt's life. So he was there with his fiancée and their children, and Stephen, his dad, was there with his son, who's also Matt's half brother, and it was a really surreal moment. There's definitely a moment where, and then obviously all of their families come. So like Matt's grandparent and aunts and so like the house was chock-a-block, like heaving. And it's all just because they love this human. And I suppose because for Matt's life, I had Matt, as we said, so young. He was reared by a little mini village. And so there's a lot of love for that human. And then secondly, I suppose his family or our family. But we are very open like that. Like his half-brother comes over to our house, on Christmas morning. And I just think love is love if you can keep it as clean as that. And we've just been really fortunate that that's the case. I also have to
Have you been fortunate though? Because it seems that you've done a lot of work on yourself and the relationships to make it amicable and make it a safe space and a kind space for everyone. Because let me tell you something, I know plenty of relationships that have broke down and things that have happened. And my God, the people that aren't willing to put the work in, it can be quite a toxic place to be. And what would your advice be to people whose relationships break down or they're going through a change? How should they approach these situations like you guys have?
Firstly, I'd say I'm really lucky that with Jill, you've taken it as this is part and parcel of our way. And I don't mean that in a deal breaker dictatorship, but like I am fortunate that you are who you are, and I often say that to you, that I'm grateful that you are as accepting, because there could be some people that come in that maybe aren't as secure or aren't who you are and would have an issue with it. So for that, I am really grateful. I know Matthew is too. I don't even know if he sees it yet, to be fair, but I do think
it's just his normal. It's so lovely. Like
else.
He's
yeah.
It's just his normal, and he's taken it on.
I think it's about the child. I think so don't get me wrong, I'm not painting myself as a princess. When you break up with people and you're 18 and postpartum and it's hard, like I was not perfect, nor was I at the end of my 9-10 year relationship with that gentleman. But I think at the end of the day, it's about Matt. So all of it became about Matthew. So we have somebody in our personal life that's going through not as similar a scenario, but they're having issues with breakups and there's children involved. And my stance is maybe I'm like the broken record, and it's very easy to have an opinion on the outside. But I'm saying it's not actually about you guys anymore, it's about the children. And you have to try and not park your hurt, you still have to deal with it, but you have to really go, right, what can I do for this person? So in our scenario it was, right, what's right for Matt? And not ever use them as a weapon and just have all the love for them, try to get it as fair as you can. It's not as simple as that emotionally, financially. I'm not pretending it is, but we are fortunate. And there was definitely rocky roads, no pun intended, amongst all of that. But now getting Matt to 22 and he's a fully fledged adult on his own, and you can have those moments, or at our wedding have versions like that, you just... Yeah, just happy. That probably a proud piece, I would say, because it hasn't been easy.
But you also have to work on yourself before you can mind the child or children in play, because, you know, you naturally have your own insecurities or maybe triggers coming from previous relationships into new relationships. And it's, you know, we were aware of that, and that this was like, okay, this is serious. This is kind of going to be a forever thing. This is we've got a young adult, or he wasn't an adult at the time, but a young kid, teenager that is in this trio. We need to go to some kind of life coach. We went to Judith McAdams, and we sat with her and talked through stuff as well, because you know, I was bringing stuff to the table. I wasn't like all A-okay. You know, I am very fortunate to be okay in my skin, and you know, a confident enough person. And going into this relationship, I wanted to bring those attributes and make sure that I wasn't bringing anything into this dynamic. And Jen was the same. So we did work on ourselves at the very beginning, knowing that we need to navigate this carefully with Matt.
I remember we went into the life coach and I said it to my friends at the time. They're like, so bear in mind that some of my friends still struggled with accepting that I was now dating women. This is a couple of years later, but they're like, right, and you're going to counselling, you're only together a hot minute. Is this not a red flag? And I'm like, no, actually the opposite. This is actually me going, I can't have got to 35, whatever age I was, and have Matt and not have, like, back to your point, chips on shoulders and so we went to this phenomenal life coach that it was almost like she could kind of see it from both sides, and you're just hearing it, and it sounds like a lot of work, but actually I love it. She actually then ended up marrying us. Like, we fell in love with her so much. We're like, will you marry us?
Well, it sounds like, I'm getting so much from this, but the main thing I'm getting from this is how much you actually really do love each other. I mean, you've put so much work into making it happen and making it work and making it okay. And obviously you guys had the same values. You kind of wanted the same things, which is, you know, you wanted that family life and that unit to work. It's incredible what you've done. I think it's very important for people to know that it can work if you're willing to put the work in as well. So work has to be done. Being in a blended family, do you find people come to you? Like, do other blended families, like, what's the community like of blended families out there?
Yeah, we have a mixed bag, don't we? Like, I would have a lot of gay couples in my life. You know, I've been kind of gay all my life, so I've had a lot of interesting circles. I'm probably introducing that more into Jen's world. You wouldn't have had that, but now it's a lovely mixed blend, and I think it was just really overwhelming, but also so like loving and satisfying to stand up and give a speech at the wedding and look out at all the people there going, like, we have sounders. We have really lovely people from all generations, you know, from my godmother aunt who's 83, who's like, this is brilliant. This is so cool. And, you know, that two good dear friends of ours, Gareth and Graham, both married, and they're dancing and kissing on the dance floor, and no one is judging. Everyone's loving. Everyone's just celebrating. That's just like... remarkable, amazing, and I do believe it's who we've attracted into that circle.
And the people who aren't in, like, let's talk about society just for a second before we finish up. How do you think we're doing in Ireland with that?
I think we're doing a lot better. I don't think it's A-okay. I do feel Jill's probably more confident, like, in every part of her life in her own skin than I am, probably more cautious of things. So, like, if we're walking somewhere, I will let go of her hand and I'll link her, so we wouldn't be confused as in a same-sex relationship. When we went on our, as Jill called it, our family moon, which is basically a family holiday but very bougie, so we've just decided to call it a family moon so people don't judge. like we were very aware of that there more so, because obviously in different countries it's different places, and giggles will come where Matt, Jill and I will be out for dinner and people give Matt the bill, or because Matthew's surname is the same as my surname, they'll assume we're married, and which is so wrong, just for the record, and never funny even, and he dies a death when it happens. Like, but I sometimes, safety wise, I wouldn't always feel as safe. You probably are a little bit more oblivious to it, but I won't feel as confident. Or sometimes online I'll get a few messages, or I'll have people say, I used to love your brand, but it's not, I have to respect, and I mean this sincerely, and I'm reminded regularly.
People would say, I used to love your brand, but I don't anymore because you're gay.
Not an awful lot of people have said that, but at the time, and there was definitely conversations I would have had internally of how do I approach this online, and that's what I do hope for the future. And I know this sounds very Disney-esque, but I would just hope that you don't have to worry about your career, or when do you come out, or how do you help your children or family or friends get used to something. It ideally just wouldn't be the case. But back to your point, I think we're doing better, but I think people sometimes are very good at saying, like, I'll tell you I drink 2 litres of water a day, but maybe I don't always. So sometimes I think people are fantastic at saying they're okay with things, but then when it comes close to home, where it can kind of bring up insecurities and harder conversations with certain people. But I think, genuinely, all joke aside, if you actually get to a place where you're like, I am who I am, I'm not hurting anyone, I'm genuinely in a good place, I mind the people around me, but I'm also minding me, then I'm kind of unapologetically the way I am. And if I don't have the right people around me as a result of it, then they're really not the right people to have around me. So to answer your question, I think we're doing better, but I still think people truly struggle. And a lot of me respects them struggling, particularly if they're of a different generation, because they were aware of it being illegal. So it's a huge turn in a short space of time. But at the same time, I'm like, I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm actually a really good person. I work my damn ass off. I've got a family I love, and I'm kind of unapologetically me. But it took me 40 years to get to that stage. So I hope for other generations it doesn't take as long. Never too late.
It is never too late.
Love is love.
Guys, thank you so much for coming in and being so open. I know it took a lot, Jill. You did amazing. You're the best girl. It's been eye-opening and lovely to hear you both speak about your relationship. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.